this debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. We have a very special show for all of you today. Shout out to our viewing audience on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and on Kant TV as well. So we here at Hard Lens Media talk a lot about elections and candidates that are running for office, but there's another thing that's also available for Americans to vote for. But again, very few states have this privilege and opportunity to do so. My state, for example, Illinois, is a state that has the ability for citizen ballot initiatives. This is, again, how we as citizens are able to implement and put in our control and our needs before our government, and thus the will of the people is done. However, because of this power, there are many special interest groups, including politicians, that want to remove it. Case in point, Ohio recently had to fight for its life to maintain its ability for its citizens to still vote for citizen ballot initiatives and for them to be accessible to them. Now, it's one thing for me to talk about on this show, but it's another thing altogether to actually bring in somebody who actually was on the front line with countless other brave volunteers and supporters to maintain citizen ballot initiatives. And joining me here today is Kyle Pierce, who's with the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity and so much more. Kyle, for the first time being on our show, obviously, we've talked before the show started. You talked about citizen ballot initiatives. Before we get started, can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your coalition and what your organization is all about?
Sure. Thanks, Kit, for having me on. My name is Kyle Pierce. I'm the executive director with the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity. And what we're doing is petitioning to place an amendment to the Ohio Constitution on the ballot in 2024 to end qualified immunity here in Ohio. Our amendment would also end prosecutorial immunity and all other immunities that government enjoys in the civil courts to the detriment of the people.
Now, obviously, I'm pulling up your website right here as well. And again, any qualified immunity, keep government accountable, protect the integrity of our public institutions, restore public trust in government at all levels of Ohio. So for my viewing audience, what is the significance of citizen ballot initiatives and why is this important? Because the thing is, there's a lot of people who are burnt out by electoral politics. I know I got some viewing members of my show in Ohio because obviously we're an online show, and many people are just, turning themselves away from politics in general, but I have encouraged people to consider supporting citizen ballot initiatives. What is the significance of this? And also, again, Ohio is this close of losing this ability in which citizens can hold their government accountable. Can you first explain, again, why this is fundamentally important for American voters, especially, in Ohio, too, to be actively involved in this?
So you give me a tall task there because I don't think I could ever stress enough the importance of these ballot initiatives. I'll speak as an Ohioan here. We have gotten through so many things that the General Assembly would never pass in our state legislature through these citizen-led ballot initiatives. Now, here in Ohio, we can change Ohio law, we can repeal Ohio law, and we can change the Ohio Constitution with citizen-led ballot initiatives. Now, this is the same process that gave us term limits here in Ohio for our state legislature and for executive offices. This is what gave us casino gambling here in Ohio, were citizen-led ballot initiatives. It's so incredibly important. And they did try to take this away this past August with what was called Issue 1 here in Ohio, protecting Ohioans' Constitution, as they like to call it. It would have made it almost impossible to get anything on the ballot here in Ohio to change the Ohio Constitution. Now, a lot of groups were more focused on, this is going to raise it from 50% threshold to pass at the ballot, which we currently have here in Ohio, to 60% threshold to pass an amendment to the Ohio Constitution. But what the real kicker were the petitioning restrictions that they tried to place on these citizen-initiated constitutional amendments, to where you currently have to get a total of 10% of votes cast in the last gubernatorial election. You have to get that amount of signatures, which currently is about 420,000 signatures. They wanted to, and you have to get those signatures from half of Ohio's 88 counties. So 44 of those 88 counties, They wanted to raise it to where you had to get it from all 88 counties. You'd have to get 5% of the votes cast in the last gubernatorial election from all 88 counties instead of the current 44 counties. And then we in Ohio have this 10-day grace period where if you don't get the requisite number of signatures, you have 10 days to get the signatures that you need. And it's worked out in Ohioans' favor, especially with this election cycle. We have not a citizen-initiated constitutional amendment, but a revision of the Ohio Revised Code, our state law, to allow for recreational marijuana. They fell short, I believe, a little over 700 signatures. And
Now,
10 days to collect those 700 signatures that they needed to get recreational marijuana on the ballot this year in November, and we will be voting on it.
Now, obviously, there's another thing that should be raising some red flags, especially in regards to what the Ohio State Legislature was trying to do. Now, again, I've stated on my show, when it comes down to politicians, be it a Democrat or Republican, at the end of the day, they are, until we get money out of politics, both parties are inherently corrupt. But this action by the Ohio State Legislature to take away Ohioans' ability to, again, implement policies that they want for their state government and for obviously for the people. What initially kickstarted this attack? And now let's be fair, it is an attack on a citizen's right to be involved in their government, and it seems like more and more we are losing our ability to voice our concerns over our politicians, be it at the state level or at the federal level. Who initiated this attack, and can you elaborate a little bit more about could there be another attack like this in the future? Because again, even talking about this, good friend of the show, Roger Meadows, told us that, hey, look, Ohio's in the fight for its life. And this flew under the radar of a lot of people. And again, just can you start from the beginning about who started this attack, and could there be another attack like this to take away the citizen ballot initiative in Ohio? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Oh, yeah. Love Roger, by the way. And this was originated in the Ohio legislature. So any amendment to the Ohio Constitution requires that the voters vote on it. The legislature cannot wantonly, just by themselves, pass constitutional amendments. They passed Senate Joint Resolution 2. And on the surface, it was introduced by, we have a Republican supermajority in our state legislature here in Ohio. On the surface, it was introduced by a last legislative session by Representative Brian Stewart and spearheaded by our Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, who is currently the front runner in the Senate primary for the Republican Party here in Ohio. But when you dig deeper, the groups really pushing for this and really testifying at these committee hearings were these Christian groups that did not want abortion to pass at the ballots. Now, there was a multi-year commission on what we should do here in Ohio to protect our Constitution and these kinds of things, and they recommended raising the threshold to 55%. Well, this issue one would raise to 60%, and conveniently enough, abortion is on the ballot this year in November. It is polling at 59%. So you do the math there, and your viewers do the math. It was entirely an attack on this abortion amendment, and all of us other citizen-led ballot initiatives would have suffered as a result. The entire state of Ohio would have suffered as a result if this had passed. They did not get it passed in time to raise that threshold to try and stop the abortion amendment, or they call it the reproductive rights amendment, from passing. And I don't believe if this reproductive rights amendment passes, I don't believe that they are going to try and get this on the ballot again, because they have they were defeated very handily by a 14-point margin.
Right.
And two, it's going to make any effort for them to repeal the abortion amendment, if that's what their goal is,
okay,
that much harder.
So again, it's quite clear that Ohio is in the fight for its life, and I just want to pull up this map here for everyone to witness firsthand, because again, very few states have the opportunity to again have the ability to, or at least citizens have the ability to be involved. Now, this is from Ballotpedia. Now, again, only a handful of states, and Ohio is one of the handful of states going to amendment, statute, or veto referendum. Now, again, my state is just an amendment, which is, again, just as good. But however, again, the vast majority of states in this country don't have that ability. So the thing is, what I say to my viewing audience is, hey, know your rights as a voter, but also, be sure to fight for citizen ballot initiatives. So obviously, again, people are burnt out by electoral politics. People are tired of the system in which, well, we're getting screwed over by politicians left, right, up, and down. But nonetheless, through citizen ballot initiatives, people can again choose what they want, and more importantly, have the government work for them. So, for somebody who's on the front lines, can you talk about the work that you guys do? Because obviously, you have to be knocking on people's doors, you have to be doing phone calls, you have to be talking to these politicians, you have to be talking to other like-minded groups. Can you explain a little bit about the work, and also, again, why people should be involved in this, especially if their state is not a citizen ballot initiative state, but to fight to make it so? Because, again, this is how we get our voices heard, not only at the state level, but it could be argued also, if more states start rising up and speaking out, it could be heard on the national level. Can you elaborate more about the work that you guys do, especially when it comes time to reaching out to people and getting people to turn out to vote, which is a difficult task upon itself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, it's very important to stress that you do have state legislatures, even if you're not living in a state where you have the ballot initiative referendum process available to you. You can lobby in committee, these state legislators. You can lobby state legislators to introduce legislation. That's what we attempted to do. We initially attempted to end qualified immunity through the state legislature. We worked closely with some state legislators. It was introduced in the Ohio House of Representatives. The bill got nowhere. It died in committee. There was obviously no interest in passing this bill or even really discussing it at all. So we went on to the this citizen-initiated constitutional amendment route, and it is you do have to make the phone calls. You do have to get out there and ask people to sign petitions, because here in Ohio, we do not have online petitioning. I know states like Arizona do have online petitioning. We don't have that here in Ohio. So you have to physically go where people are. You have to get their signatures there. You have to talk to people about what's going on. And we are a coalition. It's not just us working on this. Our coalition partners include NAACP Ohio, Black Lives Matter Dayton, Campaign Zero, the Campaign to End Qualified Immunity. We have found great allies in groups like the Koch brothers funded dark money group, Americans for Prosperity, which you wouldn't think so. But
what? Hold on again. Hold on. Wait. Who again? Who again? Because I'm about to pull up the coalition parties right here. Let me go ahead again. You got Campaign Zero, but how did you get them on board? Because they're the last people I would ever expect to show up. Anything related to the Koch brothers? Can you elaborate just about the coalition, even how you got those people involved?
Yes. So Americans for Prosperity, there are a few states that have ended qualified immunity. Amongst them is New Mexico. In New Mexico, Americans for Prosperity, the Koch brothers group, partnered with ACLU and Ben and Jerry's Campaign to End Qualified Immunity to end it through the state legislature. They lobbied the state legislators to get that passed in New Mexico to end qualified immunity. And it is something that is, regardless of what you think about Americans for Prosperity and how you feel about them, I have some feelings. They are the reason we have a Republican supermajority here in Ohio and got that issue one on the ballot. They are great when it comes to criminal justice reform. Last year, they tried to end cash bail here in Ohio. That ended up being thwarted by the state legislature. But they partner with ACLU on that here in Ohio.
Interesting. And
They're
I
going to
also
have
noticed. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I also noticed you had a friend of the show, Spike Cohen, who has done some great work with the Libertarian Party. So obviously, before, because I do want you to finish what you were saying, but I've said this on the show too. Um, we have to break down these barriers and start talking to people. We're not all going to get along or be friends. That's never going to happen. But if people come together and work together, our voices can be heard. And I think that's, especially in this day and age of social media where everything is supercharged, that is incredible that you have a very diverse coalition of people across the political spectrum. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but could you just continue? I just wanted to tip my hat to you guys for pulling off something that I want to see more of. And hopefully we do see more of that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up Spike Cohen because he has been a great coalition partner. He's been here in Ohio several times. He has been here and actually advocated for this issue here in Ohio. His organization, You Are the Power, mobilizes people in their communities to go out and actually go to these city council meetings, go to these committee hearings in state legislatures, and actually affect change. Because you can go out in the streets, you can march, you can say whose streets are streets, but if you're not working towards actual policy change, nothing is going to change. And I promise you that if you don't get out there and try to make the change yourself, nothing will change, because there is no incentive for these legislators who are in the pockets of these corporations to make any kind of change to benefit us, the people. And we have to be the ones out there fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing here in Ohio.
Now, obviously, I think a lot of people are do have some questions, and I do see it in my live stream audience, especially when it comes down to anything related to the Koch brothers. Has there been any kind of concern of, well, how sincere will they be? Because again, it's one thing to have a coalition. It's also what's everyone pushing forward, because I think everyone's also afraid of infiltration or organizations being co-opted, or either that said movement then slows down and stagnates. And I think we've seen that with a lot of activist groups and organizations. And when with something like with citizen ballot initiatives, people want to see more consistency. So in regards to that, has there ever been any kind of concern about that, of any kind of infiltration or people wanting to stop you guys from going forward? Has that ever happened to you guys?
There are some people here in Ohio who have thrown expletives at me because we are associated with Americans or partnered with Americans for Prosperity. And the great thing, at least here in Ohio, Americans for Prosperity is self-aware enough. Their coalition's director is self-aware enough to know that there is not great trust between, some of these movements and Americans for Prosperity. And they do not take a leading role in this. They are not determining what the ballot language is going to be. They are not determining what our strategy is. They are there for support, which we love, because you can see by how Ohio is a Republican supermajority, their tactics work. I'm sorry, but they do, and they are highly efficient. And people may get mad at AFP, but if you're not reaching out to them and getting their resources dedicated to things like this, that money just doesn't magically disappear. It's going into whatever they're funding right now that you may not agree with. So if you can partner with AFP to do something incredible, like ending qualified immunity, by all means, do it. Give them something amazing and beneficial to do with the funds they have, or they're just going to twiddle their thumbs and find a way to spend it, and it may not be the way you like.
All right. And as a final note for my viewing audience, in case people want to help out, or if they live in Ohio and they want to join your coalition, obviously I pulled up the website, so this is where people can go. But also, are there any kind of press events or any kind of situations going to be taking place for the remainder of this year so that people can be involved? And is there anything else that it should be aware of that's going to be happening in Ohio so that we can stay a step ahead? Because again, there have been numerous attempts, not only in Ohio, but across this nation, where there are states that have citizen ballot initiative accessibility for voters to participate in. But again, there are many special interest groups that want to take that away. So is there any kind of events taking place for your group in Ohio for the remainder of this year?
So people can go to, they can follow us on social media. We are the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity. I implore you to do even that minimal bit. We need donations. We're a citizen-led grassroots initiative. You know, we may partner with all these great organizations, but we are a homegrown grassroots organization with funding from the people. So if you can donate, do that. If you can set up a recurring monthly donation, that'll allow us to budget out better. If you live in Ohio, please sign up to volunteer, to collect these petition signatures, to do things around Ohio. We need that. We need volunteers because we have to get 850,000 signatures to get this on the ballot in November 2024. We need to get those by the first week of July of 2024. And tell your friends, tell your family what's going on here in Ohio. And if you live in a state that can end qualified immunity through the ballot, do it. Reach out, make the connections, do what needs to be done to end qualified immunity in your state, because there is nothing more American than a government accountable to the people. And we should be able to fight for it, and we should fight for it when we're able to.
All right, it's a fantastic note to end it on. I wish your coalition all the best. Keep your heads on a swivel and keep on winning, because obviously you won a big fight. But I think we all know that first and foremost that when the politicians, especially corrupt ones, are pushed back, they're going to try another attempt. So everyone, especially for those who live in Ohio or know anyone who lives in Ohio, consider looking into the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity. Follow them on social media. And again, Kyle, thank you so much for being on our show. We're going to continue on with the rest of our main show, so please stay tuned.
All right. Thanks, Skit, for having me on.
All the best.
What you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code, or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Right for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically, first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She's wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and it's only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?